process. We're hoping to have a discussion with our attorney here to figure out together what we should do. And as you can see, we have 4 directors here, but we need 5 of the 8 to have a quorum. And so there is no meeting. I thank everybody here as a director who showed up and everybody here as an owner who showed up. But we don't have a quorum for a meeting. And so it's not even adjourned, it just doesn't begin. And I guess that's it. That's it. Thank you, everybody.
Is there anything David could say that could shed a little light? I mean, I've been
David,
reading all these emails.
Given this
I'm
is not a meeting and we're not empowered to make any decisions, we're just owners talking.
I'm more than happy to summarize, the fact that Eric first contacted me whenever it was, because these last couple of weeks, I don't know the dates or whatnot, but Eric made asked some sort of question, and Eric, you might remember it better than I do. And it was about whether or not candidate information sheets, there's a deadline under the rules governing condo elections, there's a deadline for submitting a timely candidate information sheet 35 days before the election. The way I read Eric's email, although somebody corrected me at some point, the way I read Eric's email was that the office may have given one or more candidates a belief that they could turn in their candidate information sheets late. And my thought was that if a candidate was in some way given the belief that they could turn their candidate information sheet late, this was not one of those things that if a candidate information sheet that's submitted late goes out, does the world end? No. The law requires that timely submitted candidate information sheets be sent out to the owners. There's nothing that indicates that a candidate information sheet that is untimely can't be sent out. But clearly the rule's the rule. So 35 days beforehand, you don't have your candidate information sheet, you cannot assume that the association has any obligation to send it out. My thought, again, at the time that I got Eric's initial email was that given that there was some potential belief that somebody in the office might have said something to lead the candidates to a belief that they could do it later, those candidates did it later, I felt uncomfortable just saying you can't send out those sheets. It's important to know that the law and the rules provide certain, what we'll call fatal defects. If you don't put somebody on the ballot who should have been on the ballot, the whole thing has to be done over. If you don't put somebody on the ballot that should be on the ballot, fatal defect, gotta be done all over. And there's a couple of others. There's nothing fatally defective about the handling of candidate information sheets. There's just a rule. I was ready to suggest, and I even did in my initial email, that if anybody had been given some false premise to turn in their sheets late, and they did turn them in, that I wanted to make sure that everybody would be treated the same. And that was the gist of my initial email. I think Eric responded back, as did one of the board members, no, nobody said anything until after the deadline. I'm not sure that that's the facts here, but I will leave it at that. If nobody said anything, I think the better course of action is obviously to follow the rules. Although, again, I am not overly concerned if a candidate information sheet that's turned in a day or two late, it gets sent out. Typically, these things happen, the second notice has already gone out. So you're done. You either have to do a new second notice or, So those were my comments then. What I'm more frustrated about, completely frustrated, is when I was then asked again about some things, and then there was a decision, okay, we're gonna have a meeting, and somebody wanted it to be on last Wednesday. I texted Eric, and Eric texted me because I said, this was on Tuesday, New Year's Day, yeah. Had a notice been put up for the meeting?